good, a people's vaccine, available and affordable for everyone, everywhere. The ACT-Accelerator, with its COVAX Facility, is the vehicle to get us there. Let me point to three fundamental reasons why. First, the ACT-Accelerator is the only global mechanism with the full spectrum of partners and tools to beat the pandemic, with tests, treatments, and the world's largest portfolio of vaccines in the most advanced trial stages. Just this week, the ACT-Accelerator announced the availability of 120 million affordable, high-quality rapid tests for low- and middle-income countries. And by offering the largest pool of vaccine options, countries share risks and have a greater chance of gaining access to the most successful, proven, effective, and safe vaccines. Safety is the assurance the public needs when the race for the vaccine becomes politicized and fueled by misinformation. Second, the ACT-Accelerator provides the only safe and certain way to reopen the global economy as quickly as possible. A national vaccine effort in a handful of countries will not unlock the doors to the global economy and restore livelihoods. In the first phase, the key is getting vaccines to at least health and social care workers, the elderly and other vulnerable populations simultaneously across the world, regardless of wealth. That is what the COVAX Facility offers, with the participation of 156 countries representing 2/3 of the global population. Third, pricing. With so many countries already on board, the ACT-Accelerator can leverage its massive market and bargaining power to secure the lowest prices for effective vaccines and rapid diagnostics and ensure equitable access for all who need it. The world's leading international health organizations, research institutes, foundations, and private enterprises are working night and day to prove this unique model works. But it needs a quantum leap in support. The $3 billion it has received has been critical for the startup. Now we need to scale up and ensure maximum impact, and that requires an additional $35 billion. That must begin with an immediate infusion of $15 billion. These resources are crucial now to avoid losing the window of opportunity for advanced purchase and production, to build stocks in parallel with licensing, to boost research, and to help countries prepare to optimize the new vaccines when they arrive. We cannot allow a lag in access to further widen already vast inequalities. But let us be clear, we will not get there with donors simply allocating resources only from official development assistance budgets. We need to think bigger. It is time for countries to draw funding from their own response and recovery programs. By helping others, they will help themselves. Investing in the ACT-Accelerator will accelerate every country's own recovery. The pandemic is costing the global economy $375 billion a month and 500 million jobs since the crisis erupted. The developed world has devoted many trillions of dollars to respond to the socio-economic impact of the crisis in their own countries. Surely we can invest a small fraction of that to stop the spread of the disease everywhere. I call on all countries and partners to significantly step up in the next 3 months to provide much needed new and additional resources to mobilize all partners and to put everybody behind a global response to deliver. Solidarity is self-interest. Grasping that 21st century truth is essential to end this crisis and emerge safer, smarter, and stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General, for that urgent call for a fully funded global response. Now we will hear from our co-host, the Right Honourable Dominic Raab, Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs for the United Kingdom. He joins us live from Hanoi. Welcome, Foreign Secretary.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be speaking here today from Vietnam to co-host this event with UN Secretary General Dr. Tedros, South African Health Minister Zweli Lawrence, and we feel that the issue of equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, treatments and tests is absolutely vital and urgent. As Secretary of State for the new Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, we'll bring together both our diplomatic reach and expertise, with our development aid and experience to this vital agenda. Scientific cooperation has made breakthroughs at, frankly, record-breaking pace. And with our enhanced collective knowledge, I think we're in a much better position to tackle this terrible, invisible virus. In the UK, we're proud to play our part, supporting life-saving treatments and backing up vaccine research with funding and investment. But new products will only have the influence that we need them to have, the impact on the pandemic, if they reach people who need them. So collaboration under the ACT-Accelerator is our best hope to bring the pandemic under control. And the UK is proud to support this initiative to drive equitable access and global impact through our funding. As my Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said, the health of every country depends on the whole world having access to safe and effective vaccines, wherever and whenever that breakthrough may occur. And the UK will do everything we can within our power to bring that about. We've actively engaged in the collaborative design of the COVAX Facility, which is an unprecedented alliance of countries and partners pooling resources to accelerate vaccine development. We want to be able to ensure large-scale manufacturing, rapid delivery of the future vaccines globally and on an equitable basis. I'm very proud that the Prime Minister has announced the UK's participation in the COVAX Facility, which demonstrates our commitment to multilateral solutions to the global challenges that we all face. The pandemic is really an acid test of our international resolve to work together on the issue of the day and on the issue facing our generation in order to save lives and rebuild our economies. We don't just think it's a moral responsibility, we see the direct national interest that we have, that others have, in protecting not just our citizens through vaccinating them, but preventing and insulating ourselves from a second global wave that would threaten us all. So we need to work together. We need others to join in that endeavour. And the UK has made a minimum commitment of £250 million, and we will add an extra £1 for every $4 committed by others, up to an additional £250 million. Statements are important, but real collaboration is vital, and we've got to back our aspirations with the resources necessary. The UK is living up to the responsibility we feel to ensure vaccines, treatments and tests are truly available to all, and I call on the international community to step up so we can rise to this groundbreaking challenge together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for...
Excellencies, the Prime Ministers, the Chancellor, Angela Merkel, the Prime Minister of Norway, Anna Solberg, Prime Minister for Canada, Mr. Justin Trudeau, and the Prime Minister for Sweden, Stefan Löfven, and my co-host, the Honourable Secretary for Foreign Commonwealth and Development Affairs, Mr. Dominic Raab, distinguished guests. I'd like to thank you for co-hosting this very timely event to accelerate the end of COVID-19 pandemic and for recognizing the critical need for the developing countries to be afforded a voice in this global discussion. This side event marks the progress that has been made through this collaboration to develop and ensure equitable access to new COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines through the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, ACT-Accelerator in particular, is COVAX Global Facility, Global Vaccines Facility. This is a key opportunity to reaffirm our global commitment to the vision pursued through the ACT-Accelerator and to scale up the financial resources required to ensure that ACT-Accelerator is able to deliver the tools that the world needs to bring to an end this global pandemic. South Africa is a co-sponsor to this event, alongside with the United Kingdom, believe now more than ever in multilateral cooperation and for governments and international partners to unite around the global guarantee that when a safe and effective vaccine is produced, it is done rapidly to scale and will be available to all people of all countries. This should also apply to all treatments, diagnostics, and technologies for COVID-19. Looking beyond my own country to the African continent and the rest of the developing world, where the impact of the virus is already devastating, the case for ACT-Accelerator becomes more compelling. In the 10 months since we've seen the virus breaking up, we've seen the following. Firstly, the Sustainable Development Goals being put at risk and 100 million more people around the world facing the possibility of being driven to poverty. Global health progress setback. So, for example, there's been suspension of immunization campaigns in 99 countries, and 24 million children in low and middle income countries who may not have had access to school next year, and deferral of investments in renewable energies, which we need to fight climate change. And in Africa, the under-resolved health systems are at risk of being completely overwhelmed. We must therefore confront this health crisis as a global challenge, together in solidarity and cooperation with one another, working towards a common global solution. We must ensure the achievement of universal health coverage and improve the lives of millions of people globally, especially in developing countries, as a large part of their populations are currently vulnerable and marginalized to this pandemic. And lastly, I'd like to reiterate my country's renewed commitment towards the ACT-Accelerator, and to ensure it is fit for purpose and fully resolved to deliver the tools the world needs to accelerate an end to this global pandemic, to save the lives, to protect the health system, and to restart the global economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mkhize. We will now hear a message from the Prime Minister of Norway, Her Excellency Erna Solberg, co-chair of the ACT-Accelerator Facilitation Council.
Excellencies, colleagues and friends, it's a pleasure to be part of today's event on accelerating the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. The world needs to come together. The pandemic transcends national borders, and so must our efforts to fight it. Vaccines, drugs and diagnostics must be made available for all in need. If not, we risk delaying the end of the pandemic for everyone. Earlier this month, together with my good friend President Ramaphosa of South Africa, I co-chaired the inaugural meeting of the ACT-Accelerator Facilitation Council. More than 30 heads of states and ministers, economic cooperation groups, international partners and civil society representatives participated. The Facilitation Council will be central to ramping up the political support needed. The Council will also provide strategic direction and guidance to the ACT-Accelerator Pillar Principle. As co-chairs, we were encouraged by the enthusiasm and commitment expressed at the launch by the fellow members of the Facilitation Council. In the outcome statement, we underlined our shared commitment to leave no one behind in this crisis by working to ensure that all countries and populations have equitable access to the new vaccines, therapeutics and diagnostics to the ACT-Accelerator is pursuing. We also know that strengthened health systems as well as universal health coverage is a prerequisite for achieving our goals. Even though much progress has been made, the financial resource gap for the ACT-Accelerator remains large. As co-chair, Norway is committed to mobilizing the necessary support together with all the members of the Council and with all countries and partners. The business case is simple. Investing in preventing the pandemic will save enormous financial burdens in the future. We have a common and united interest in contributing at all levels to make this happen. And I would like to commend Gavi, CEPI and the World Health Organization for having established the COVAX Facility. Norway has confirmed its full participation in all stages of the facility as part of a Team Europe approach. We are also contributing to the COVAX AMC to support low-income countries in purchasing vaccines. I am encouraged by the number of countries who have decided to participate in COVAX and contribute to global equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. How we respond and deal with the ongoing crisis will also determine our ability to deal with future crises. To strengthen the global preparedness must therefore be an important goal for our joint efforts. I urge all countries and partners to join forces. We must confront one of the most serious healthcare crises to hit the world in recent times as a global challenge together. The case for united action has never been stronger, nor has it been more urgent. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Solberg. And our final co-host is with us now, the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who joins us from Geneva. Dr. Tedros, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Takshkaduha, Your Excellency Erna Solberg, and also thank you to Your Excellency President Ramaphosa for co-chairing the ACT-Accelerator, and also like to thank Dominic and Secretary General for co-hosting. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, yesterday marked a grim milestone in our shared fight against COVID-19. 1 million people are confirmed to have lost their lives to this new virus. The real number is certainly higher. Thousands more are fighting for their lives in hospitals all over the world. Individuals, communities, and economies have been gripped by fear and uncertainty. Science is giving us solutions in the form of new tests, therapeutics, and hopefully a vaccine. But science and solutions will be ineffective without solidarity. That's why we say solidarity, solidarity, solidarity. The Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator harnesses the power of science and partnerships to develop solutions and deliver them in a spirit of solidarity. Already the ACT-Accelerator has delivered impressive results. Earlier this week, we reached agreement to make 120 million new rapid tests available to low and middle income countries. We have secured courses of dexamethasone, the only medicine shown to reduce the risk of death so far for up to 4.5 million patients in lower income countries. And COVAX is supporting the development of 9 vaccines with more in the pipeline. We already have 167 countries who will benefit from the COVAX Vaccine Facility, representing over 70% of the world's population, and the list is growing every day. All of this has been achieved with $2.6 billion of startup funding. Now it's time to realize the full power of the ACT-Accelerator. The current financing gap for the ACT-Accelerator stands at $35 billion. That's less than 1% of what G20 governments have already committed to domestic stimulus packages. To put it another way, it's roughly equivalent to what the world spends on cigarettes every 2 weeks. Fully financing the ACT-Accelerator will help to control the pandemic, restore confidence, and stimulate the global recovery. Frankly, this is not a financial challenge. It's a test of solidarity. This is a moment for saying no to nationalism and yes to our shared humanity. Because ultimately, the ACT-Accelerator is not delivering merely vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics. It's delivering something far more important, hope. Let's act now, let's act together to stop this pandemic. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. And to finish our opening session, we have a video message from Bill Gates on the importance of ensuring equitable access to vaccines.
The world is on the brink of a great scientific achievement. A COVID-19 vaccine will likely be ready by early next year. In fact, we'll probably have more than one vaccine ready. These vaccines will allow us to save millions of lives. They'll also have another enormous benefit. They'll allow us to develop a plan for the world to globally eliminate COVID-19. To achieve this goal of global elimination, we need 3 things: the capacity to produce billions of vaccines, the funding to pay for them, and the systems to deliver them everywhere. The world's low and lower middle income countries are home to nearly half of the global population. Because they don't have the purchasing power of the wealthy countries, they risk not getting nearly enough doses. Unless we do better, they'll only be able to cover 14% of their people with a COVID-19 vaccine. A vaccine can make COVID-19 a preventable disease, and no one should die of a preventable disease simply because the country they live in can't afford the vaccine. But you don't even have to care about the equity view to see the problem with the rich country only scenario. Today, even wealthy countries with very low case numbers are still suffering. Australia and New Zealand have done a great job and gone long stretches with very few cases inside their borders. But their economies remain distorted because their trading partners are on lockdown. And occasionally, a carrier of the virus comes into these countries, creating new clusters of the disease. The only way to eliminate the threat of this disease somewhere is to eliminate it everywhere. The solution is not shaming the rich countries that are doing the natural thing of wanting to protect their people. The solution is to vastly increase the manufacturing capacity so we can cover everyone as soon as possible. It's been amazing to see these private companies agreeing to expand drug-making capacity by using each other's factories. We have a number of agreements like this, but we need even more, especially for the vaccine. That's why I'm thrilled today to announce a new joint agreement signed this morning by 16 pharmaceutical companies and the Gates Foundation. In this agreement, the companies commit to, among other things, scaling up manufacturing at an unprecedented speed and making sure that approved vaccines reach broad distribution as early as possible. The next component we need for global elimination is the funding to pay for those vaccines. The pharmaceutical industry has already made significant commitments in this area as well. The companies involved in the agreement are committed to using donations, foregoing profits, and using tiered pricing to make their products as affordable as possible. So another element here is that we need public funding to pay for these vaccines for all countries. And this is where the ACT-Accelerator comes in. It's supported by Gavi and the Global Fund. Both organizations have spent 2 decades becoming experts in how to buy and deliver vaccines, diagnostics, and drugs to developing countries. The United Kingdom has donated enough money for the accelerator to purchase hundreds of millions of vaccine doses for poor countries. I want to thank Prime Minister Johnson and the Foreign Secretary for this amazing leadership commitment. And I want to encourage other countries to do the same. Finally, even when we have the manufacturing capacity and funding lined up, we'll need to strengthen health systems to achieve the broad coverage to deliver the vaccine and monitor for outbreaks. In doing this, we can take the lessons we've learned from the ongoing effort to eradicate polio. With the right diagnostics, health workers can also sound the alarm if a future disease jumps from bats or birds or any animal to humans. In other words, we can also be building the system that will help reduce the damage of the next pandemic. I'm confident that the world will build a plan to eliminate COVID-19, saving millions of lives and getting on a path to global recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gates. Now we're going to hear from a doctor who is taking part in a vaccine study in Brazil, Dr. Maria Letícia.
Meu nome é Maria Letícia, eu tenho 61 anos e sou médica. A minha experiência durante esse período da pandemia foi de grande desconforto, incerteza e, até certo ponto, impotência. Eu, por já ter 60 anos, tive a minha rotina como médica bastante alterada durante todo esse período, mas sempre me mantive em atividade no meu hospital, não parei de trabalhar. Para mim, a possibilidade de participar de um estudo com um potencial candidato à vacina por esse novo coronavírus surgiu como uma proposta de alguma coisa concreta que eu posso fazer por mim, no sentido que eu tenho esperanças de realmente vir adquirir uma imunidade protetora, e pelo coletivo, na busca de uma solução para esse problema. Eu acredito que, para sairmos dessa fase, nós vamos precisar esforços em diferentes níveis. Nós vamos precisar esforços importantes da comunidade científica que vem sendo feitos. Vamos precisar esforços de nações, de instituições e de nós, como indivíduos. Eu acho que participar de um estudo de uma vacina, como nós temos participado, é uma das nossas atribuições como cidadão. E eu espero que realmente isso possibilite um acesso equânime às vacinas muito em breve.
Now, we will move to hear more about why it's so important to work collectively as a global community to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. As a human family, we have an ethical and moral responsibility to work together, joining our wealth, ingenuity, and energies for the common good. There are important economic and political reasons why pursuing a truly global response is needed to end this crisis. In this next session, we will hear about the progress that's already being made and how the COVID-19 ACT-Accelerator is leading the way, how it's bringing together governments, civil society, and industry to ensure vaccines, tests, and treatments are developed and distributed fairly and rapidly to everyone. We welcome Sir Jeremy Farrar, Director of the Wellcome Trust, a biomedical research charity based here in London that is supporting the ACT-Accelerator. Sir Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you very much. And Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and colleagues from around the world, as COVID continues to accelerate around the world, we should just pause to remember as we pass 1 million deaths in just 9 short months, and we must not let each individual tragedy become a passing statistic. Of course, at its heart, this is a health and a humanitarian crisis. But it's also a societal, an economic, and a political crisis across borders and across continents. As always, the greatest impact is on the most vulnerable in all our societies. But this is a truly global challenge that affects us all, no matter how rich, no matter where we live. There is no end to this for any country until all countries bring this to an end. Our children cannot go to school, our healthcare workers are not safe, our jobs are not secure, trade cannot return, our economies cannot grow, until we bring this to an end and we bring an end to the fear. Some questioned whether the world could unite in solidarity to overcome fear, to overcome the greatest health challenge in 100 years, to come together to invest as one in health systems, in the critical diagnostic tests and treatments, and in vaccines. And we need all of these. We need them at scale, at speed, and with the trust of the global community that they are available, they are safe, and they're effective. And we need them for everyone, for your country and for mine. In a few short months, this is what the ACT-Accelerator, hosted by the WHO, set out to build. A world brought together in enlightened self-interest, working across borders, across continents, and already the ACT-Accelerator is enhancing health systems, providing PPE to protect healthcare workers, oxygen to treat patients, through the WHO, the World Bank, the Global Fund, providing 125 million rapid diagnostic tests through FIND, the Africa Centre for Disease Control, the Gates Foundation, and many more. Dexamethasone, accessible in every country through Unitaid and Wellcome, and soon new treatments which will save more lives. Through CEPI, Gavi, and the WHO, the critical vaccines we all need. And we need all of these interventions. There is no single solution to COVID. We need them to make available to everyone, independent of their ability to pay, because this is the only way to end this nightmare. And this is also the sort of 21st century we want, working together, multilateralism at scale for the benefit of everyone. The ACT-Accelerator, the WHO, partners around the world have one mission: to come together and ensure equitable access to all the tools needed to end this pandemic, to bring hope where there is fear, to bring solidarity where there is division. Together, the ACT-Accelerator is delivering all of this. We need all of your support, your political and your financial support. Thank you to those countries who have led already, but we need a much more comprehensive response globally. The ACT-Accelerator has the startup money, yes, but it does not have the money that is needed yet to bring the pandemic to an end. We need all of you to do this. We need it today, and we will need it tomorrow. Leadership which will be remembered in 100 years' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. Now, having access to rapid diagnostic tests will be essential to understanding and stopping the spread of the virus. And one country leading the way in this area is the Republic of Korea. To hear about their progress, we're joined by the country's Minister of Health, His Excellency Nung-hoo Park.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I'm Nung-hoo Park, Minister of Health and Welfare of the Republic of Korea. Today's high-level side event at the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly is a great opportunity to reaffirm our solidarity with the international community. Fast diagnostic testing and equitable allocation of diagnostic tools are key to pandemic response, along with the development and distribution of treatments and vaccines. Indeed, a highly accurate and reliable test is what we need in the first place to take further steps toward rigorous infection prevention and control, including contact tracing and isolation. In an effort to facilitate the supply of COVID-19 testing kits, Korea has strived to build a system to develop rapid diagnostic testers, supporting the development of core technologies. Recently, a Korean company successfully put its product on WHO's list for emergency use. Worldwide, it is the first emergency use listing for antigen RDT. The Korean government is looking forward to this EUL being an opportunity for all countries to enhance their access to RDT. In addition, in order to prepare for the dual threat of COVID-19 and influenza in the Northern Hemisphere, Korea has made efforts to develop a testing tool to simultaneously detect various viruses as well. On top of that, with an aim of $100 million humanitarian assistance of COVID-19, Korea has provided many diagnostic kits and face masks. We will continue to put effort into this humanitarian assistance and international cooperation. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we desperately need cross-border solidarity and cooperation to overcome the global crisis COVID-19. After its launch in the spirit of solidarity and cooperation, the ACT-A has gained remarkable progress over the 5 months. I am confident that the ACT-A Facilitation Council, which was recently formed, will also take a vital role in mastering international support for the ACT-A and putting it into action. Korea pledges to join forces with the international community for the development of vaccines and treatment and global equitable allocation while supporting activities of the ACT-A to the full extent based on our capabilities and technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Next, we will hear from one of the world's most populous countries about the central role India is playing to bring vaccines to the world. Principal Scientific Advisor, Professor Krishnaswamy Vijayaraghavan joins us now. Professor.
Excellencies, dear friends, colleagues, we continue to face the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Unlike the early days of the pandemic, we now have much more information about the nature of the disease and its impact on diverse populations and contexts. But there is much yet to learn. It is only through collaboration and multilateralism that the path to exit can be cleared and lit. These are still early days. Our understanding has grown best where there has been free flow of information, technologies, and solutions. The Access to COVID Tools Accelerator is a shining example of such openness and is already rolling out new tests and treatments to save lives and stop transmission. Such a global multilateral approach and equitable access to all new COVID-19 tools is important for the world. With this pandemic, a stress on insular self-interest will not benefit its proponents and will waste valuable resources. Since understanding of solutions, whether preventive or therapeutic, is a work in progress, research is the only torch that can guide us. International collaboration in research is critically important for finding effective vaccines, diagnostics, and cures. The entire world's hope is pinned on such success so that our economies, our societies can return to normal and renew economic and social progress. That is why an event such as this is important. It brings together the best competence and resources available in different countries to strengthen our common fight against the virus. I commend the leadership of the ACT-A Facilitation Council in spearheading this effort. This initiative also demonstrates the resolve of the global community to not forget the most vulnerable parts of the world. We must be responsible towards countries who lack the resources, both financial and human, to protect their populations effectively. None of us will be safe as long as the virus continues to rage in any part of the world. India is committed to this view. The Indian pharmaceutical and vaccine industry has long been the source of affordable drugs and vaccines, especially for the developing world. It has repeatedly demonstrated its ability to produce quality vaccines and medicines at scale and at low cost. Vaccines sourced from India take care of 2/3 of the immunization needs of the world's children. We also have considerable capacity in research and development, both within our public and private sector, for therapeutics and diagnostics too, in addition to vaccines. These are available for the world. Excellencies, India is one of the world's oldest civilizations with a millennia-old tradition of sharing knowledge, technology, and intellectual capacity with the world. All that we do remains the shared heritage of humanity. We see it as a duty to play a full role in tackling this latest health crisis too. India stands ready to contribute its research, its talent, its manufacturing capacity, as well as the best practices we have developed for expanding immunization and healthcare within our vast population for the benefit of the world. I thank you on behalf of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and all our colleagues and look forward to working with you on our shared commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We will now hear from Winnie Byanyima, Executive Director of UNAIDS. Ms. Byanyima, welcome.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. I thank the co-hosts and the Secretary General for this meeting and for calling for global solidarity in the fight against COVID-19. Access to COVID-19 tests, treatment, and any future vaccine is a human right of each and every one of us, no matter the color of our skin, the money in our pocket, or the country we live in. We must back the multilateral solutions we have on the table to unlock supply for all COVID-related technologies. The WHO ACT-Accelerator, including its vaccine facility COVAX, and the COVID Technology Access Pool CTAP. We cannot keep knowledge and technology under wraps. Doing so puts artificial limits on production. When the American virologist Jonas Salk was asked who owned the patent to the polio vaccine he invented, he replied, "There is no patent. Could one patent the sun?" I am proud to be part of the People's Vaccine Alliance, calling for a vaccine to be fairly and speedily distributed across the world, free of charge, according to need. That's what survivors of COVID are calling for. They have signed an open letter to pharma industry leaders, a people's vaccine and treatments that are available to all. We cannot repeat the painful lessons from the early years of the AIDS response. When people in wealthier countries got back to health, while millions of people in the developing countries were left to die. The measure of our success can't be only about controlling the COVID pandemic. It must also be about how we finish the battles on HIV, TB, and malaria, and how we strengthen preparedness against future pathogens. Let's heed the lessons from the fight against HIV and have communities and people affected by the virus in the lead. Our recovery, getting back on track for the SDGs, needs a people's vaccine, not a profit vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Winnie Byanyima. Of course, civil society must play a key role in this global initiative. We can welcome now Ms. Gail Smith, the CEO and president of the One Campaign, a global charity working to end extreme poverty and preventable diseases by 2030. Welcome, Ms. Smith.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. The urgency of this meeting today in ensuring that the ACT-Accelerator and COVAX are successful couldn't be greater. 1 million people are dead, 1 million families upended. Millions more will die unless leaders act on the facts that define the choices in front of us. Fact 1, a vaccine is critical to ending the pandemic. Fact 2, this is a borderless global pandemic that demands a global response for those vaccines. Fact 3, we're not on track yet. But here are the facts that should compel us to action. First, the epidemiology shows us that more lives will be saved and we will end the pandemic more swiftly if we act globally rather than just nationally. Second, it's cost effective. It's costing the world $100 billion a week as we live through this pandemic. For only a fraction of that, we can get on track to global vaccine equity. And third, it's the right thing to do. We as the One Campaign are launching today the vaccine access test, through which we will score companies and countries monthly on how much they are contributing to that global equity that is so urgently needed. We hope it'll provide an incentive, that it will allow us to track our collective progress, and that it will provide vital information to the public about about where we are and where we need to go. We're grateful, by the way, that the UK and Canada are acting by putting new resources on the table in the fight for vaccines, and also, of course, welcome this latest contribution from the Gates Foundation. Look, the choices with leaders today are these. We can extend the life of this pandemic or shorten it. We can save money or we can pay for it. We can stand against the inequity this pandemic has exposed, or we can endorse it. Our appeal to leaders are these. First, unite against this virus. In my lifetime, I've worked on H1N1, HIV, Ebola, and now COVID. Trust me, viruses hate collective action. Second, fight for our common humanity, because every man for himself is not going to get us there. Third, stop the bleeding. Just as the economic shock of the pandemic has upended economies in the developed world, low and middle income countries urgently need action on the debt moratorium, SDRs, and robust aid budgets. The voice may be with citizens. The choice is with leaders. Show us that rather than cementing in stone the inequalities that have been magnified by this pandemic, you lead by doing what is smart, what is cost effective, and what is fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, and thank you to all our contributors for highlighting the importance of taking a collective approach to this crisis and for giving us so many examples of the work that's already being done through the ACT-Accelerator to try and end this global pandemic. Now let's take a deeper look at how the ACT-Accelerator is working to bring vaccines to the world through its COVAX facility. The COVAX facility has been set up to help achieve the goal of equitable access for everyone around the world to any successful COVID-19 vaccine. To open this session, we begin with a message from His Excellency Heng Swee Keat, Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore.
Excellencies and colleagues, Singapore is honored to participate in this important event. I thank the United Nations Secretary General South Africa, United Kingdom, and the World Health Organization for bringing us together today. The 75th anniversary of the UN marks an extraordinary year. COVID-19 has turned into a global pandemic, raging across many parts of the world. More than 1 million people have died. Many lives and livelihoods are at stake. Every country is doing its best to contain the spread of the virus and to cushion the impact of the pandemic on businesses, workers, and households. But no place can truly be safe until every place is safe. Countries must therefore work together to fight this pandemic. This is our only way to overcome the crisis. In particular, we have to strengthen international cooperation to accelerate the development of vaccines, maximize production capacity, and ensure affordable, fair, and equitable access to vaccines for all. Singapore supports vaccine multilateralism and is a strong supporter of the role of the UN, the World Health Organization, and international organizations in the fight against COVID-19. I'm also glad that new and innovative forms of multilateral cooperation have been created in response to the pandemic, such as the Access to COVID-19 Tools or ACT-Accelerator, and the COVID-19 Global Vaccines Access or COVAX Facility. Singapore is an early supporter of these initiatives and co-chairs with the Friends of the COVAX Facility with Switzerland. We look forward to representing the Forum of Small States and working with friends and partners on the ACT-Accelerator Facilitation Council. We encourage more countries to join these efforts and support vaccine multilateralism to better fight COVID-19. The world is at a turning point. Our actions in the coming years will determine the future of our countries and of humanity for decades to come. Our collective efforts will enable us to overcome this crisis. By working together and strengthening the foundations of international cooperation, we can better deal with future crises and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals so as to build a better future for all our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. COVAX is the expression of an extraordinary promise. The global community is coming together to solve a global challenge. But what further steps are required to deliver on this promise, to ensure its success, and what further challenges are there ahead? We join a distinguished panel to discuss the COVAX facility. This panel represents a range of international partners who will each be key to its success. We welcome Gavi CEO Dr. Seth Berkley, Ms. Jane Halton, Board Chair of CEPI, and Henrietta Fore, Executive Director of UNICEF. First, Dr. Seth Berkley. The COVAX facility was just an idea when we spoke earlier in June at the Gavi Summit, and now it's the end of September. We see it in operation with demand from everywhere in the world. Can you update us on where you've got to and what challenges COVAX still faces?
So thank you, Jen, and thanks to the organizers, particularly the UN Secretary General, the WHO, the United Kingdom, and the President of South Africa for their hosting this critical UN General Assembly event. The good news is COVAX has achieved so much in a short amount of time. At the first ACT Day event hosted by the EC and other nations, a set of pillars were established to address the different challenges in the COVID-19 pandemic. Following the Global Vaccine Summit 2020 in June, hosted by Gavi in the UK, world leaders came together and recognized the essential contributions of vaccines, health security, and economic prosperity. I, like many colleagues, noted the risks the world would face if we did not come together collectively to manage with vaccines an orderly end to the acute phase of the pandemic. Since this time, Gavi, CEPI, WHO, and our partners such as UNICEF and the World Bank have been working tirelessly to make the COVAX facility a reality. COVAX is now in business. 168 countries and economies from all corners of the globe, representing 2/3 of the world's population, of which 76 are self-financing, have committed to joining COVAX, with more in process, entrusting us with their domestic health funding and donors with their ODA funding to reserve and procure doses of safe, efficacious vaccines that protect against COVID-19. I want to thank the leaders everywhere who have put their confidence in COVAX. I ask others who are wavering urgently to join us, and we put the facility together for you. Never before in peacetime have we merged the self-interest of sovereigns with the global coordination needed for a truly multilateral effort. Now, to the challenges. We will continue to work closely with our industry partners to secure and reserve doses, and we need robust conversations and transparency from industry to ensure that we match supply with demand, keep the facility at the top of the queue, and utilize public resources to the maximum efficiency possible. Industry should note the enormous consolidated market we are bringing to them, something Gavi has done for 2 decades. We need to secure $2 billion in urgent funding for the COVAX AMC by December, such that we can ensure reservation of doses for the 92 lower income countries, and will need at least a further $5 billion to procure these in 2021. I want to thank all those who have already made commitments, including some at this UNGA, appreciate the recent announcements from the World Bank, and encourage others to accelerate. We will not succeed if lower income countries are left behind. We will be collectively organizing the largest vaccine campaign in human history. This will require ingenuity and creativity and money, but also reassurance to many in the public who are skeptical of the quality of vaccines. So we have an immense amount of work ahead of us. I call on all to work with us and make this succeed, countries, industry partners, because failure is not an option we can or should contemplate. As I never tire of saying, no one is safe until we are all safe. Thank you, Jen, and back to you.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you for outlining all those challenges and telling us where we are with the COVAX facility to date. And I'd like to bring in now Ms. Jane Halton, CEPI Board Chair. Jane, the COVAX facility has the largest portfolio of potential COVID-19 vaccines in the world. Why is it so important for it to have true global collaboration? Oh, right. Jane. Sure. We'll try and get the sound resolved there with Jane. Sorry, we're having a bit of a technical issue. We'll talk instead to Henrietta Fore from UNICEF, the Executive Director. Henrietta, when the vaccines start coming online, getting them out to the world is going to require, as we heard there from Seth, the largest and fastest deployment of medicine in history. Tell us, what is happening on the ground to prepare countries to roll out these vaccines, and particularly the role of UNICEF?
Thank you very much for the question. And we are delighted at UNICEF to be part of this historic initiative, and thankful for the United Kingdom, Canada, World Bank's announcements. All of this makes an enormous difference for us in the world. 3 decades ago, we led the Universal Child Immunization Initiative. And today, with our partners, and enormous thanks to the dedicated frontline workers and volunteers worldwide, we deliver nearly 2.5 billion doses of vaccines every year. We built an incredible track record of scaling new vaccines for children. And most importantly, to your question, we understand the vital importance of preparing countries and communities for vaccinations. On the supply side, securing more than 2 billion doses of vaccine by 2021 will put to work every ounce of UNICEF's strengths and expertise in market shaping and in strategic procurement. We're working with WHO and local partners to help prepare governments to receive and to deliver the COVID-19 vaccine. Even before the pandemic, with our friends at Gavi, we invested nearly $500 million in the last few years to strengthen the cold chain infrastructure, investments that will make it easier to deliver the COVID vaccine where it's needed. But we also know that there are still gaps, so our country offices are now working with governments on an urgent basis to close these gaps on the ground.
Great. We're going to try and go back to Jane Halton, the CEPI board chair now. Jane, if you can hear us, we're just talking about the COVAX facility having the largest portfolio of potential COVID-19 vaccines in the world. Could you speak a bit about why we need true global cooperation?
Yes, thank you. And I hope this time you can hear me. And can I also thank the UN Secretary General, WHO, South Africa and the UK for this event. As we've already heard, this week marked a really solemn event in our fight against COVID-19, and that's the 1 million lives lost, which we all need to, I think, remember. And of course, safe and effective vaccines alongside treatments and tests are our exit strategy from this pandemic. And there is now good reason for hope. As Seth's already mentioned, economies representing around 2/3 of the world's population have committed to joining the COVAX facility in what I think is a really encouraging sign of global solidarity. But the COVAX facility is just one, albeit very important, part of the COVAX end-to-end collaboration, which I'm really proud to be the co-chair of with my esteemed colleague, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. We are living through extraordinary times which call for extraordinary measures. It's clear that the business as usual model of vaccine development and deployment cannot address the catastrophic impact of COVID-19. That's why COVAX has been designed to work across the entire vaccine ecosystem to deliver on our goal of 2 billion doses of vaccine globally available by the end of 2021. This is the fastest and fairest way to bring this crisis to an end. Vaccine development requires multidisciplinary collaboration on a global scale. COVAX is able to share these in R&D, manufacturing, procurement, allocation, and distribution, all with the aim of making vaccines available to those who need them as quickly as possible. But for all of this work, we must focus first on R&D. In the space of just 8 months, CEPI has built the world's largest and most diverse vaccine portfolio, which is available to COVAX. Vaccine development can take 10 years or more, so this scientific progress is absolutely astounding. But vaccine development is high risk and high failure, and we know we'll need at least 3 licensed vaccines to achieve the scale needed to produce our $2 billion objective. That's why we're investing in a wide range of vaccines and technologies. By hedging our bets across multiple vaccines, we're increasing the world's overall chances of success. We've made tremendous progress, but the battle against COVID-19 is far from over. The success of COVAX hinges not only on countries signing up and commitments from manufacturers, but also filling urgent funding gaps for the COVAX AMC, which will support the participation of lower-income countries, and also for R&D work led by CEPI, which needs an additional $800 million to fund late-stage clinical trials, which generate that really crucial data needed to prove that vaccines are safe and effective. These vaccines will save both lives and livelihoods. It's the best investment the world ever makes. In the midst of this pandemic, COVAX and the ACT-Accelerator represent beacons of hope. Never before has humankind come together this way to ensure global access to life-saving medical technology. Through COVAX, we are on our way to setting an important precedent for the world, and I urge governments and our industry partners to continue to work with us to bring the acute phase of this pandemic to an end.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Henrietta, for joining us. And thank you also to Seth Berkley from Gavi, who I know is at an important board meeting, so he had to leave us a little bit early. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's get an industry perspective from AstraZeneca, the first company to join the COVAX facility, from its Executive Vice President of Biopharmaceuticals, Ruud Dobber.
At an early stage in the pandemic, it soon became clear that to resolve this global health challenge, we don't just need vaccines. We also need to ensure that everyone around the world has access to them. As a result, AstraZeneca committed to join the COVAX facility back in June as its first industry partner. We did this at the Gavi-led Global Vaccine Summit hosted by the British Prime Minister. We share the same objective as COVAX to ensure global equitable and timely access to vaccines. To further enable broad access, we have committed to make the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine globally available at no profit during the pandemic period, should it prove safe and effective. Since then, we have ramped up our vaccine manufacturing capability, securing capacity for up to 3 billion doses. This large capacity will enable us to supply countries globally, including low and middle income countries, through our partnerships with CEPI, Gavi, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Serum Institute of India. So, how are we working with COVAX? Well, CEPI are supporting through funding tech transfer and manufacturing, and Gavi will support the procurement through a volume guarantee. This landmark collaboration has enabled us to start manufacturing the vaccine in parallel to its development to enable access as quickly as possible should clinical trials prove to be successful and regulatory approval be obtained. Our teams are working 24/7, as are our external partners, with the goal of having the first batches manufactured by the end of this year. We have been grateful for the advice of our COVAX partners along the way, as we are all work towards a shared goal. We are moving quickly, but without cutting corners. The safety and the rigor of the clinical program is of paramount importance. In this unprecedented time, industry can benefit from the collective expertise and the global network which COVAX offers through the decades of experience its partners have in pandemic response and vaccine programs. I'm confident that other industry peers with promising vaccine candidates will also commit to the COVAX facility to enable it to realize its mission of global and equitable access. It will, of course, take more than one vaccine or treatment to end this public health crisis. And we must remember that no one is safe until we are all safe. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
We've heard about the impressive progress COVAX has made to date and the number of countries joining the facility, with hopefully more to come every day. The ACT-Accelerator and its COVAX facility must now move quickly out of the startup phase to turn this early progress into solid results. Before our co-hosts close the event, we first welcome a number of special guests to tell us about what they are doing to support COVAX. We have the pleasure of welcoming Her Excellency Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany. Chancellor, welcome.
Secretary General, dear Antonio Guterres, Foreign Secretary, Minister Mkhize, Director General, Excellencies, I would like to thank you for taking the initiative to organize this side event, a very important one indeed. Indeed, it cannot be repeated often enough that this COVID-19 pandemic, as the word itself is already indicating, is a global challenge that can only be tackled globally. Thus, the ACT-Accelerator initiative is ever so important, and I've supported it right from the outset. Actually, this initiative goes back to decision by the G20 heads of state and government in March this year. But we need broad international support for this global pathway beyond the G20 partner, especially as regards its pillar regarding the production of a vaccine, COVAX, that is, if we are to ensure...
All right, so you have the government of the United Kingdom and South Africa and the World Health Organization marking the progress that has been made in global collaboration towards the ACT-Accelerator and particularly its COVAX facility. So you've been hearing a number of leaders. They will certainly have more for you here on the channel. But now